Vitali wasn't just another YouTuber. He was YouTube's most iconic and idiotic troublemaker, a man who built an empire out of humiliation, chaos, and pure stupidity. From fake bomb pranks to attacking random strangers, his entire career was a dare to the universe. How far can I go before someone stops me? But when you take that mindset to a country that has zero tolerance for reckless stunts, you don't get a viral video, you get a prison sentence. Because this time, Vitali's quest for views didn't just ruin his reputation, it got him trapped inside one of the most brutal prison systems in the world. And the question now is, how did the king of YouTube chaos go from a multi-million subscriber prankster to facing years behind bars in the Philippines? Before the fame, before the arrests, Vitali was just another kid trying and failing to make something of himself. He wanted to be a pro skater, then he tried acting, then adult films. Nothing stuck, but in 2012, YouTube gave him something that finally did: attention. And once he tasted it, he'd do anything to keep it. He uploaded pranks that made early YouTube look like the Wild West, unscripted, reckless, and completely detached from empathy. There were no brand deals, no algorithms policing you, just raw chaos. And Vitali found his calling right there in exploiting that chaos better than anyone else. His big break came from one of the darkest moments in Florida's history.
The gruesome face-eating attack in Miami could be part of a trend, an example of something larger and much more dangerous. Miami police say they've seen similar cases recently of people behaving strangely and showing what appears to be superhuman strength.
The Miami zombie attack, a real-life cannibal incident that had the whole city terrified. While people were still processing the horror, Vitali dressed up as a zombie and started chasing strangers through the streets of Miami. He wasn't making people laugh, he was making them panic, and he filmed every scream, every tear, every terrified face for clicks. That video went viral overnight, millions of views, national headlines, and Vitali realized something dangerous. People's fear equals money. He turned it into a formula. Next came the Russian hitman prank, where he pretended to assassinate people in public. Then the Gold Digger prank series, where he humiliated women to feed a fan base that cheered him on for being real. He was rewarded for being the internet's worst kind of entertainer, one who mistook cruelty for comedy. By 2015, Vitali had hit 10 million subscribers. He wasn't just a prankster anymore, he was a brand, a household name in the YouTube prank era, standing alongside Roman Atwood and FauziTube. He had everything: money, fame, recognition. But none of it built on respect. It was all built on other people's humiliation. And that kind of fame always has a cost, because when you start making the world your playground, eventually the world pushes back. The bigger Vitali got, the dumber his stunts became, because in his mind, every arrest, every outrage, every headline was just more publicity. He wasn't chasing creativity anymore, he was chasing chaos. When his zombie prank hit 10 million views, Vitali didn't think, how can I top this? He thought, how can I break reality itself? That's when the stunts started, and each one pushed him further from being a YouTuber and closer to being a walking cautionary tale. First, he climbed the Hollywood sign, screaming his name from the top like he owned it. Police helicopters circled him for hours, but Vitali didn't care. He had his thumbnail. Then came the 2014 World Cup final in Brazil, where he sprinted half-naked across the field with Vitali Uncensored written on his chest. The world saw a streaker. Vitali saw millions of impressions. And when even that wasn't enough, he scaled the Great Pyramid of Giza, risking years in an Egyptian prison for a few Instagram photos. He called it content. Egypt called it a crime. Every time he got arrested, the charges somehow faded away. He'd smile for the cameras, post bail, and upload a new video the next week. It was the perfect feedback loop. The world punished him, and the internet rewarded him for it. He became addicted to the cycle. The controversy, the headlines, the outrage, they were his fuel. and as long as the views kept coming, he believed he was untouchable. For nearly a decade, Vitali faced nothing but slaps on the wrist. Each escape from justice became proof, in his mind, that he could get away with anything. That fame was his get-out-of-jail-free card, and for a while, it was. But every addiction reaches its overdose, and for Vitali, that breaking point wasn't another prank. It was a night in Miami that would destroy everything he'd built. On April 12, 2020, the chaos finally caught up with him. Miami police received a 911 call from a terrified neighbor. Somebody's outside beating the shit out of somebody, female on the ground.
Exactly what's happening, ma'am. Somebody's outside beating the out of somebody. Are there any weapons involved?
No.
No, he's just beating the out of somebody. Okay. Female on the ground. He was punching her in the face left and right.
The assailant wasn't a stranger. It was Vitali himself, the same man who'd once made millions laughing at people's fear, now fueling a real one. According to the police report, he'd consumed a dangerously high dose of psychedelic mushrooms, triggering vivid hallucinations that pulled him out of his house and into madness. Once outside, he spotted a jogger, and in that drug-fueled delusion, he tackled her to the ground and beat her repeatedly, leaving injuries around her face and eye too horrific to show on camera. The 911 recording spread online within hours. You could hear panic in the caller's voice and disbelief in the officer's tone as they realized who they were arresting. When police arrived, Vitali resisted. Still high, still disconnected from reality, officers shouted, "Put your hands on the car," as he mumbled incoherently. Moments later, he was cuffed, silent, and dazed, his career effectively over. News exploded across the internet. Headlines that once praised him for crazy stunts now called him a monster. Brands dropped him overnight. YouTube began demonetizing his older prank videos. And the victim, she filed a lawsuit that would strip him of what little he had left. When the court case closed, Vitali was ordered to pay over $155,000 in damages. And just when it seemed like it couldn't get worse, he nearly died in a skydiving stunt while promoting his adult website. The parachute, branded with his logo, was too small to slow his fall. Broken bones, a broken brand, and a completely broken man. That single night in Miami ended the illusion of Vitali's invincibility. For years, he made a living crossing lines and dodging consequences. But this time, the line fought back. The viral star who once used fear for fame was now feared for real. His sponsors were gone, his friends disappeared, and for the first time, he couldn't prank his way out. With his body battered and his reputation destroyed, Vitali vanished from the internet. 2 long years of silence. But when he finally came back, he promised redemption. And once again, he lied. 2 years after disappearing, Vitali returned to YouTube in July 2022 with an apology video titled, "I'm sober, I'm back." He sat in front of the camera, clean-cut, calm, rehearsed. He said all the right things, that he'd been in therapy, that he'd quit drugs, that he'd found clarity. It was the kind of apology that YouTube eats up, a redemption arc in 1080p. He promised his fans he was done being that guy. But if you watched closely, something was off. He talked about his career, his image, his mistakes, but never once did he mention the woman he assaulted. The apology wasn't about guilt, it was about rebranding. After the apology, Vitali vanished again until 2023, when he resurfaced on Kick, the new streaming platform known for its anything-goes content. This was his natural habitat, chaos without consequences. He dove straight back into harassment-style IRL streams, taunting strangers, picking fights, and broadcasting people without consent. He called it raw entertainment. Everyone else called it a liability. By 2024, he'd reinvented himself again, this time as a self-proclaimed predator catcher, streaming with creators like Aiden Ross. But his version of justice was humiliating suspects live, forcing them to shave their heads, kneel on camera, or even kiss his feet while he shouted slurs for donations. And when things got awkward or crossed legal lines, he'd plug his gambling sponsors midstream, cashing in on every second of discomfort. The irony? The man who said he'd changed was now doing the same shti, just with better lighting and a paycheck. For a brief moment, it worked. The shock factor brought in millions of views. Kick's audience loved him for being raw, unfiltered, and insane. He even landed a Kick deal through Aiden Ross, officially putting him back on the map. Vitali had fooled everyone again except reality, because the chaos that built his comeback would also destroy it. His stream started crossing every line possible: public nudity, harassment, violence, until one stream ended with a woman stripping on camera, and Kick permanently banned him. With no platform left and his reputation on life support, Vitali decided he needed a comeback so big it would make the world forget everything he'd done. So he packed his bags, flew halfway across the world, and landed in the one place that wouldn't tolerate his games. By March 2025, Vitali had set his sights on a new playground: the Philippines. Travel live streaming was trending. Creators like iShowSpeed were breaking viewership records abroad, and Vitali wanted in on the chaos. He arrived in Manila and started with what looked like goodwill, handing out printers and computers to locals, filming himself being charitable. But it didn't take long for the mask to slip. Within days, he was back to his old ways, yelling at strangers, harassing security guards, and propositioning women live on stream. In one stream titled "Disturbing the Peace in the Philippines," he joked, "Can I make love to you? Sexy time. Keys, keys." When he didn't get the reactions he wanted, he escalated, trying to steal a motorcycle in broad daylight, snatching a fan from a restaurant, and threatening to rob an elderly woman just to get a reaction. Clips of these streams flooded social media. Outrage spread fast, not just among Filipinos, but globally. Another travel vlogger, Unlock Philippines, Eric Cabrera, confronted him live on stream, pleading for him to stop disrespecting locals. He said, "We have influence, bro. Why not build people up instead of tearing them down?" Vitali laughed in his face and threatened to knock him out. Days later, police had enough. On April 2nd, 2025, Vitali was arrested in Bonifacio Global City, charged with theft, harassment, trespassing, and unjust vexation. Even then, he didn't take it seriously, smoking and laughing while officers read him his rights, convinced he'd just be deported. But the Philippines wasn't playing around. By April 7th, he was paraded in handcuffs on national television beside the country's Interior Secretary Remula, who publicly declared, "The time when foreigners could just disrespect the Philippines is over." Even the president of the Philippines reacted online, condemning Vitali's actions. For the first time in his career, Vitali's fame didn't protect him, it doomed him. Both his home countries, Russia and the US, refused to help or take him back. He was left completely alone in a foreign prison system, facing up to 24 years behind bars. Authorities confirmed he'd be held in the Bicutan Detention Center, notorious for overcrowding, filth, and gang-controlled cells. He'd get 3 meals a day, worth about 70 pesos total, and no access to a phone or camera. For someone who built his empire by filming everything, silence was the cruelest punishment of all. But what happened next made his downfall even darker, because the longer Vitali stayed locked up, the more his empire and his sanity began to rot from the inside. By April 7th, 2025, Vitali's downfall had become a national spectacle. He was marched into a televised press conference, handcuffed, silent, surrounded by armed officers. At the podium stood Justice Secretary Remula, announcing the charges that would define the rest of Vitali's life: alarm and scandal, attempted theft, and multiple counts of unjust vexation. Remula's message to the world was cold and clear. He's not an influencer here. He's a criminal suspect, and he will be treated as one. The country's patience for clout chasers was gone. This wasn't America, where viral fame could spin controversy into clicks. This was the Philippines, a nation with zero tolerance for stupidity dressed as entertainment. When reporters shouted questions about deportation, officials shut them down instantly. There would be no special treatment, no fast-track flight home. As the secretary confirmed, Vitali would serve his sentence in the Philippines, and only after that would deportation be considered. He was later transferred to a BJMP detention facility, where he'd await trial in conditions far removed from luxury, cramped cells, shared sleeping mats, and barely edible meals worth 70 pesos a day. The same man who once lived for the camera now sat in a dark cell, invisible. The irony? He'd always bragged about being bigger than consequences. Now, those consequences were the only audience he had left. While online fans speculated that the charges were dropped, Philippine officials confirmed the opposite. The case was active and moving forward, with multiple counts on file. And even if the penalties for each count sounded small on paper, stacked together, they could add up to years behind bars. To make it worse, immigration laws ensured that once he finished serving time, he'd still face a deportation ban that could bar him from entering the country, or others, for decades. For the first time in his career, there was no comeback arc waiting on the other side. No sponsor to bail him out, no platform desperate for controversy, just years of silence, legal battles, and an empty cell. The man who once used other people's pain for views was now living inside his own worst viral clip, except this one doesn't end when the camera stops rolling. Vitali's story isn't just about downfall, it's a warning about ego, addiction to attention, and the illusion of invincibility. Because the internet might forgive stupidity, but the world beyond it doesn't.